Okay. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. This has been the last year. My life has been very busy and very different. So this has been a verse that has really kind of carried me. About 2 weeks ago, I was asked, I got back from Kenya and I was asked, you should really tell about your trip. And if you know me well, public speaking is not my thing. Give me a bunch of kids and I'm fine, but put me in front of people. And I had to have speech to get into nursing, and my speech teacher would never dream that I'm up here today. Let me think. Last time I talked a little bit and then I went off script, so I'm going to try to, it's so hard. My trip to Kenya was such a big event, and so I'm going to try to put it in a nutshell, and then after the service in Greenwood Hall, I have pictures, and then you can come and ask me. But here I am, Lord, I can do all things in you. So for some of you know me, but I'm more of an 8:30 person, and my name is Jann Eich. My family moved here 15 years ago, and St. Matthew's was our first church that we visited. And Stephen at the time, he's 17, he was 2. And so for our first service, we came, and it was the pig roast. And so not Father Chris wasn't here yet. Father Steve encouraged us to stay, and we did. And I was sitting and feeding baby Stephen, 2-year-old, and I looked up, and my husband was flipping hamburgers. And I realized we had found our church home. My husband, Mark, is an emergency room physician. He works at Madison in the ER, the main ER, and pediatric ER. And there in the pediatric ER, he works with Dr. Amy Billings. Her husband is a gastroenterologist, Julian Billings, and he's been going to Kenya with Kenya Relief. This was his 5th trip. So they had asked Mark, would he be interested in going, and he said yes. And then they came to us and said, what about in June? Could you go in June? And we would like Jann to go, and also Stephen, our son. They had a small amount for people that were non-medical. I immediately wanted to go, but I was a little hesitant because I'm a former RN that worked in the emergency room, and I haven't practiced in a long time. So I was a little hesitant, but I heard this little voice that said, but you can do this with my help. So we prayed about it, and then we went to Amy and Julian and said, okay, we'll go to Kenya. Before I say too much about our trip, Kenya Relief is the group that we went with, and Kenya Relief is an amazing organization, and it started in Alabama. Steve James is from Coleman, Alabama, and he's the founder. His daughter Brittany, when she was 16, was watching a television commercial and saw them talking about the orphans in Kenya, and so decided that she wanted to help them. With her parents' help, she did. She supported a little boy named Newton, and dreamed of going to Kenya, being on a mission trip and meeting Newton. Brittany had such a heart for Kenya. When she was 19, Brittany passed away while she was in college, and Greta and Steve were devastated, of course. And so Steve was a registered nurse and started researching about Kenya and seeing if they could find the little boy that Brittany supported. So that's where Kenya Relief was born. Since 2002, he has made numerous trips back and forth to Kenya, has formed Kenya Relief, which is in Migori, Kenya. On the map, it's on the little border of Tanzania, and it's just, I think it's 8 hours from Nairobi. But the compound has a clinic. The clinic is open all the time, but they have very limited things that they can do. But they have, Kenya Relief has set up 22 teams of medical people, and they rotate each year. They come in and do, our team was gastroenterology and acute care. We had a pediatric ER physician, and my husband did adult and pediatric. And then we had a nurse practitioner that would screen for everything else. But on the compound, they have the clinic, and then they have a farm. The farm, the volunteers are from Arkansas, and the nicest people. They provide food for the orphans and for Kenya Relief, all the workers and all the staff. We got to meet them, and they showed us all their fields. And my dad was a farmer, so it was just an amazing to watch how they took care of the plants and everything. But anyway, it's a 22 teams. We were on team 12. There were 15 of us from Huntsville that flew to, we flew to Atlanta first and met some of the others. We had three from Illinois and one from Detroit, I believe it was. But this was a dream team. It was a bunch of medical people that felt the call that they needed to go and help the people of Kenya who rarely get to see a doctor. We took care of so many patients that I was the first nurse that they really had ever seen. And I have some funny stories about that too. But one of the people that I met was Devery. Devery Coughlin is from Huntsville. She's from Cove Church. She and her family got the calling to go and be the missionaries in Kenya. I think this is their 4th year. She said it took her a little bit of time because she was so worried. They had a daughter that was a junior in high school, and she was worried about them. But I have a great picture on the screen. Their daughter graduated homeschooled, but she has a picture of her in her cap and gown and everything, and 100 orphans surrounding her, giving her a thumbs up. So it's been an amazing trip for her, but she's known in the village. She goes out when she's not preparing for us to come and do medical care. She goes into the village and finds kids that need her care or Kenya Relief. We did a rescue while we were there. There was 2 little girls, 2 twins, and they looked like they were about 2 years old, but they were 5, and parents had died. Grandmother was trying to raise them, and she was able to talk with them, and then they will take them in January and take care of them, and they both have a lot of medical issues that they need to deal with. Okay. On the home visits was funny because, again, it's a very different culture, and a lot of kids had not seen freckles, and so I'm in a lot of selfies because people, one of my translator looked at me and said, "I don't know how to ask you this," and I said, "What?" And he said, "They want to know what's wrong with your skin." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Freckles. They haven't seen freckles before," and so it was really funny that just it's something I don't think about. Let's see. Again, I have so many things, and the last time I almost ran out of time because the clinic days were tough. We were most days we would get at the clinic at 6:30, and then we would go. Most days it was 7. One day it was almost 8 o'clock before we got out. The non-medical, my son, Stephen, they got to leave at 3 o'clock, and they would go over to the orphanage. The orphanage houses 100 kids, but they also have a school, and it has the reputation now of being the best school in the Migori and in a lot of Kenya. And so they have boarders that come, and they also stay on the compound so they can get the education that Kenya Relief provides. And so one of my big highlights is one day I was really tired coming back from clinic, and I saw my son Stephen, who's not here, and now I can say more. He hates homework. He hates school is just not his thing. But I saw him sitting in a little hutch gazebo, huddled over with one of the little boys that I will tell you about, and he was helping him with his homework. He was, the little boy had a test coming up that he was stressing about, and Stephen, instead of going and playing, and he's very athletic, he was sitting at a table with this little boy outside, and they were doing homework. That brings me to Ambrose. Ambrose is a little boy now that we're sponsoring. When Devery found him, he was 10 years old. His parents had died. He was living with distant relatives, and so he was tending the cattle. And the cattle there, they just kind of roam, and so they have one person that kind of watches them all day as they go out and graze. And so when Devery found him, he'd never been to school, and he was 10. And she said it was so funny that when they brought him in, he was in first grade with all the little kids. But that didn't stop Ambrose. Ambrose is now 13. He's in sixth grade, and he was so excited. But watching Stephen and Ambrose interact together, Ambrose, again, I told you my dad was a farmer. He was the farmer. He took me to his garden, and he would often go to the farm across the street and help out with the food. And then there were so many other stories that I could tell you of heartbreaking stories of these kids, but these kids were so amazing that they had such faith, and to read their stories and to sit down and talk to them about their stories will just always be etched in my mind, because they had such a sweet heart. And the other, some people have heard this story. I'm not a morning person, but outside my window every morning, I would wake up at 6 a.m. The girls had a step pump, and they have to draw the water and wash their clothes before school. And those girls would come right outside my window, and they sang songs. They sang praise songs. Their voices, I miss it. And so if I didn't have any takers at the 8:30 service, if any of you would, I'm trying to get somebody to come sing outside my window, but even my family were like, no. But it was such a blessing just to hear those girls, and you know, that their problems that they face are so big. And then when I look at my life and I think, okay, you know, I can't really sing, sorry Tom, but I need to sing praise more often. Another tough thing that I had to kind of overcome is I was worried about not practicing. It's been almost 16 years since I worked as a nurse. And so when we went to the clinic, we had kind of a mock trial to kind of see how everything was going to run. And Gary Watson, who is a pharmacist, but he's also he's one of the administrators at CCI. He was our health coordinator. And so he stood up and said, okay, I need nurses. This is where I need y'all to be. And everybody was really quiet. And I took a deep breath, and I kept saying, ugh. And I heard, you can do this with my help. So I said, okay, I'll do triage. And if you're not familiar with triage, usually you associate it with, like big events. But in a hospital, when you triage, when a patient comes to you, you have to take their information history and decide where to put them. So I would have to decide which doctor to put them, and it was amazing. I enjoyed my time at triage so much, and I was so afraid at first that I wouldn't be able to do it. And by the end of our days there, my translator was speaking Southern. He'd say, okay, y'all, this is what we're going to do. And I was like, wait, are you Zechariah? Are you mocking me? And Zechariah was a Baptist minister. He lived about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from Kenya Relief, and he would take a motorcycle, which they call a picky, and he would come, stay on the grounds until the English teams left. So he would sleep outside with a blanket. I mean, he was like, it's no big deal, here. But he had such a sweet, gentle soul. And again, I loved the people. I wish I could tell you all the people. There were James, the driver. The people from Kenya, but also the people that have answered their call. This mission, just like Devery, that just kind of up and went to Kenya. I'm trying to see. I know I left some things out. I forgot to do my timer, so I'm afraid I'm over. If you ever had the nudge, or if you're sitting there going, I really would like to do a mission trip, do it. Doesn't matter which country, where your calling is, God will help you. He helped me come over my fear of not being able to do what I did. Quick story that Mark was amazing. When I finally, the week before you travel, you get your T-shirt, and you have to wear your T-shirt so everybody will identify you as part of their team. And I got my T-shirts, and I looked at Mark and tears, and it was like, I think somebody else needs to take my spot. So, because I'm not sure that I can, that I don't think that they need someone that, is a little rusty. And Mark took my hand, and he said, Jann, you love well. That's what everyone needs, and that's what they need. You will be fine. When you get in there, you're gonna tell me, aha, you were right. Well, now I'm gonna have to tell him. He's not here either, so I can say that. But he is right. We're all enough. And if you feel that call, listen to that nudge. If you have any questions, I'll be here, and I know I've left out so much, safari and everything, but you can talk to me after the service. Thank you.
Amen. And now let us rise, and turning in our prayer books to page 358, we will affirm our faith in the words of our ancient Nicene Creed, 358. We believe in one God,
Father, the Almighty,